Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Scott Edinburgh, and I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach, a boutique admissions consulting and tutoring company. Today, we're here to talk to you about interview preparation, specifically about how to get into Wharton. So I'll flip over and go through a slide deck, and we'll be happy to take some questions at the end. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'll start with a brief overview of what we do at Personal MBA Coach. We provide admissions consulting and tutoring for the GMAT, GRE, and executive assessment. I'm an AGAC committee chair, which is the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, and we provide a suite of services from early MBA planning, which is advising folks before they're even ready to apply to schools, through interview preparation with a team of former M7 MBA interviewers. This is a select list of schools that our clients have gotten into over the last year or so with some decent merit fellowships. Brief background about myself, so you know who's talking to you today. I did my undergrad at MIT, where I studied at Sloan, worked in consulting at Deloitte for a few years, and then I went to Wharton for my MBA. I have 13 years of professional experience and over 10 years of MBA admissions consulting experience. So today I'm talking about interviews. In case anyone...
Screen sharing. Yeah, all good.
In case anyone is interested in the overall timeline of the process, this is sort of where the interviews fall in the scheme of things. For those of you who might be thinking of applying in the next year, this gives you a sense of what you can be doing at different points in time. So the interview is the last step in the process. And for those of you who are hoping to receive an interview invitation from Wharton or have received invitations from other schools, congratulations. You know, there are a lot of components in the process. The reason I put up this slide is actually a few reasons. One, you know, there are many different factors that admissions committee members consider when thinking about whether they should accept someone or not into their program. You have the undergrad GPA, GMAT or GRE score, the resume, extracurriculars, work experience, essays, letters of recommendation, and then interview. So the interview is only one part of the entire process. And what that means is, while it is very important, there are certainly a lot of other factors in play. That said, this is the last chance for you to try to separate yourselves from the pack. You probably heard this stat from other places, but once you get to the interview stage, and this varies based on the school, you have a roughly 50% chance of getting in. So for every 2 people who interview, 1 of them gets accepted. So how can you succeed in the interview? First, mastering the interview takes time. This is not the kind of thing that you can roll out of bed, put on a shirt, show up on campus, and start interviewing. Now, for Wharton, the way that you practice is actually a little bit unique. And so I'll talk about just some interview prep strategies in general, and then obviously for Wharton specifically. But research is important. Research. What should you research? So when you apply to school, you probably did some initial desktop research. You likely went on the website. Perhaps you reached out to a student and talked with a student or two. You know, you did enough work so that you could write the essays. Well, now you need to actually sit in a room and talk with someone from the admissions team. Now at Wharton, the time that you actually speak one-on-one is short, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you still have an opportunity to show them your real interest in the program. So do a little bit more research. If you haven't reached out to any students, reach out to a student or two. If you haven't talked with an alum, reach out to an alum and talk with an alum. Watch videos. If you're nearby, you can visit campus. This is the time to really determine not just whether the school is a good fit for you, but why you're interested in the school and what specific things they have going on campus. Then take some time to reflect. So reflect on you. Think about why you're going to school, right? You might have to answer a question such as, you know, why are you really interested in our program, or why MBA in general? So take some time to reflect and think about the main reasons you're focusing on the degree at this point. And lastly, rehearse. The more practice you undertake, the better you will end up doing. So practice with a friend, practice with a colleague. We offer interview prep practice as well, but make sure to rehearse. And for the group mock interview, which Wharton does, it's a little bit tricky to rehearse, but we'll talk about that. So what are interviewers really looking for? Looking for a number of things, and this is just a small list of them. One, clear, well thought out goals. Okay, want to make sure that if you have a sense of what you want to do after business school, it makes sense. It doesn't have to be a direct jump from what you're doing now, but it should be logical and it should be achievable. Presentation skills. This is very important in Wharton's interview because they will be testing how you perform in a group, how you present, how you speak. Are you a clear talker? Can you connect sentences logically? Teamwork skills. So Wharton wants to see how you will talk with each other in a team and how you will interact. Confidence. Confidence is very important. There are a lot of different things that you can say during an interview. And some are great, some are okay, but if you have the confidence to project yourself throughout the process, that actually goes a long way. Program knowledge. You want to show the school that you know everything about the school as possible. So for Wharton, what makes Wharton unique? What does Wharton really stand for? It's not just a finance school. It's a very collaborative environment, very down to earth. There's a lot of student faculty involvement, and it's a big school. It's a big class, but the class is broken down into sections. And so demonstrating your knowledge of the program and some unique things that they offer is really important. Passion. You want to be excited, right? You want to show up, smile, have fun. Again, this goes a long way. Interviewers are looking to see whether you will fit into the school, whether you will be a Wharton student. What defines a Wharton student? Be excited. Obviously, interpersonal skills, and then your overall personality. So these are a few things that interviewers are looking for. So what is a team-based discussion? Okay, unlike other MBA programs, for the most part, most other MBA programs have either a one-on-one interview or a one-on-two, or in some cases, one on a group, where the interviewer has a list of questions, they ask you the questions, you answer the questions, and there's a little bit of conversation, but it's really, you're sitting in front of a desk answering questions. Well, Wharton has a team-based discussion. And what they do is they invite 5 or 6 applicants together in a room, sit them down for 35 minutes to carry out a problem together. And there are 2 evaluators that watch the applicants and take notes. And that is most of the interview. There's also a 10-minute one-on-one section at the end. But for the team-based discussion, right, this is Wharton's way of deciding how you will act as a student on campus. Will you fit in well? Are you a confident team player? Are you a leader? Are you a follower? You have a mix of both. So you will receive a prompt upon being invited to interview, and you have some time to prepare beforehand. So for this year, Wharton is asking about global modular courses. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's time to start researching GMCs. So they want to have you come up with a new global modular course and talk about how it would fit into the Wharton curriculum. Now, you will have overall 35 minutes for the exercise as a team, but each individual will have 60 seconds to deliver your opinion or your response to the global modular course. So you are coming to them with an idea, and you present this idea for 1 minute. Everyone speaks for 1 minute, so that's roughly 5 or 6 minutes. And then the group breaks up into discussion. At the end, the group will reach a decision for what will the modular course be. Is it your idea? Is it a friend's idea? Is it a mix of both? And then one, multiple, or perhaps all, and I don't recommend it, team members will be presenting to the interviewer. So that's the overall structure of the team-based discussion. Now, I'll talk about the TBD for a little bit because, again, it is different from normal interview prep. some things that are important to keep in mind are that your idea is important, right? You want to come with a 1-minute pitch that makes sense, that shows that you are knowledgeable about the program, you understand what other GMCs they have, and yours is really additive to the process. However, that's really only part of the process. What they're really testing in the GMC is how you really testing in the TBD is how you interact with others, right? How are you motivating people? Are you thinking like a Wharton student? Are you always trying to, win? Or are you maybe playing different roles? It's okay if you're not the leader of the group. And most people are not group leaders. If you think about it, you can't have 5 group leaders together. That would be a dysfunctional group. So be confident playing different roles. Listen. Listening is very important. This doesn't mean that you should be silent the whole time and sit like this caricature on the left with your arm hanging over the chair, but you should be listening. This isn't the time to talk the entire time. And be yourself. So as you think through the team-based discussion, think about how you generally interact on a team. Now, if you work in teams today at work, perhaps this is the time to go to your boss or your colleague and ask for some feedback. Honest, direct feedback of how you operate in a team. What are you like if you're sitting in a boardroom? What do you do that's good? What do you do that's not good? Perhaps you can try to improve some of your teamwork dynamics. And then pretend that this group is your future learning team, right? At the end of the day, Wharton wants to be able to accept a group of students who they could then put into different learning teams who would study together and do problems together and solve issues together. And so how would you act in that learning team? And that's how you want to act in the interview, and that's what you want to project. Now notice, I'm not telling you any one specific thing to do. I am saying some things not to do, but the reason for that is Wharton wants a diverse class. Wharton wants a wide range of personalities and abilities and communication styles. So there is no one perfect answer for what should I do in the TBD and how should I act. But what you want to do is you want to ensure that the team works well together. So to the extent that you can facilitate team discussion, it's really helpful. Now, when we do our mock team-based discussions, we do them over Google Hangout. We have 5 or 6 applicants get together, and that's where you really see the impact of working in a team. Until you actually get in a group and sort of talk with each other, it's hard to practice. It's not like a one-on-one where you can just throw out questions. However, that said, here are some sample statements. Take all of these with a grain of salt because it really depends on the situation, the interview, the group, etc. But some things that could be good to say in the team-based discussion are things like, good point, Jim, but what about the impact on faculty? So you're complimenting someone, at the same time you're asking a probing question to think about really how good is the idea. Perhaps you are a timekeeper. We now have 10 minutes left. Let's start summarizing, right? In the mock interviews that we did in round 1, we did 5 different sessions with applicants. And in 2 of them, time was an issue. They ran out of time, right? That's not a good thing. You don't want to run out of time. So you want to make sure that you have enough time to summarize the idea at the end. I like your idea, Steve, but you know what? I don't think this is going to be possible to do in 1 week. So you're thinking about timing. Perhaps there was 1 week for the GMC, and all of the things that Steve wanted to do, really just added up to take too much time. Maybe how does this compare to that? Thinking about existing GMCs that they have on campus and how your new one would really supplement or complement that. And then other comments here really just to give you a sense of some things to think about. Perhaps you can consider economic climates or other things about student involvement and interest, right? Students need to be interested in these, faculty need to be interested in these as well. So after the team-based discussion, there is then a one-on-one component. Okay, now one way that the Wharton one-on-one interview is different from other school interviews is it is very short. It's 10 minutes. And if yours does not last 10 minutes, do not worry. They don't all last 10 minutes. What happens in the one-on-one? Well, you leave the interview, you go to talk with an admissions interviewer directly, and the first thing that you'll do is you'll talk about the team-based discussion. Okay? So think about how the team-based discussion is going during the discussion, so that once you're finished and you sit one-on-one, you have content to talk about. That might seem really obvious, but think about that and know a couple things that you kind of want to reflect on and react to. Okay, know your application in detail. This is not an interview that will dive into all of the minutia of your application. However, it's always safe to know your application inside and out. That way you can understand perhaps what might be in an interviewer's mind if they're looking through a resume and think about, oh, there was a gap in the employment, or you had really fast promotion, or something that they want to kind of talk about in more detail. Prepare for behavioral questions. Now, some applicants get behavioral questions at Wharton and some don't, but you want to prepare for them. At most, you will probably get one, maybe two behavioral questions, but still prepare for them. So how do you prepare for a behavioral question? You think about stories for things that you've done in the past. You try to think through what has worked well or perhaps not worked well at work and why. As I mentioned earlier, do your research and know Wharton well. You should be prepared to sit down and convince an interviewer that you want to go to the school, that you know about the school and you didn't just show up on campus. And lastly, be yourself. A large portion of the evaluation comes from the group component. And I know many applicants who have almost gotten in completely or not gotten in completely because of the group component. So by the time you get to the one-on-one session, most of the evaluation has already happened. Now, not all of it, and you can definitely move in one direction or another based on your one-on-one interview. But again, they're really testing on the group component for the most part. So behavioral questions. How do you answer behavioral questions? And for those of you who are interviewing at other schools, this will probably help you a lot, since again, at Wharton, you might get one of these and you want to do it well, but you won't get 5 or 6 of them. So how do you think through behavioral questions? First, have a few stories that you will use for all of the questions. Now, what I mean by that is if you research interview questions, or if we work together and we send you our list of all the potential questions that you'll get, it's a lot. You know, there are a long list of questions and you won't get all of them. So think about a few stories. I say, 4 to 5 stories of different projects that have happened that can answer a multitude of questions. So if you had a project or an assignment or client engagement that went well, perhaps on that engagement, you led someone, you challenged the status quo, you overcame an obstacle, you did something new. These are 4 different questions that you could answer just by talking about the same situation. So think about SAR, situation, action, results. Explain what happened briefly so that the interviewer has a sense of where you are. Perhaps even talk about your company. If you're working for a company that maybe isn't the most obvious or well-known company out there, you can just say, so at XYZ Incorporated, we do this. It can take 10 seconds, but it can really help to level set the playing field. And then you discuss the action. So, what is it that's happening? What is it that you did? What was the result? Use names. Names are really good for a few reasons. One, I think that names add legitimacy. Right? If I'm talking about how Tim created this new portfolio and Mary researched it and presented it to everyone, right now you're probably picturing 2 people in your mind. You're picturing a Tim, you're picturing Mary. It feels real. So using names is good. Be brief. When I say brief, a few minutes is good for these answers in general. For Wharton, you want to think about 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. Again, you only have 10 minutes, so you can't spend 4 of those minutes answering one question. Engage the interviewer. This might be hard. So if you can't engage the interviewer, don't worry. But if you can, it's really good, right? And so what are some examples of questions? Time when you worked with someone difficult, stepped outside of a role, failed to reach a goal, led a team, etc. What are some other interview questions that you can get asked? I think for Wharton, what's interesting is you will only get a small list of questions. And so I don't generally recommend running through long lists of questions that you will go through for the one-on-one component and practicing. The reason for that is it just won't be the best use of time. Think about answering how the team-based discussion went, why you're interested in Sloan, why you want to get the MBA, some basic questions like that. This is not an interview where they will throw a lot of wild card questions at you and try to catch you off guard. So interview pitfalls to avoid. One is taking too strong of a stance on an issue. Now, you will never know the interviewer's personal preference or beliefs, so avoid a controversial topic. And I think this is important in the team-based discussion and in the one-on-one session. Not knowing your resume. This is really basic and seems obvious, but I hear from admissions directors that there are applicants who get invited to interview at schools like Wharton who don't know all the details on the resume. Don't be one of them. If it's on the resume, be ready to talk about it. And you can't take out your resume and say, oh yes, let me look at that. That's right. In this activity, I did that. You have to know this by heart and be ready to just talk about it confidently. However, you don't want to appear overconfident. Right? Consider that you're trying to get a job and make a friend at the same time. And that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. You want to be strong, you want to be confident, you want to show them that you know your answers, but you don't want to come across as cocky. And sometimes that does happen in an interview. Next, you don't want to be too in love with the program. Okay, so show that you're interested in Wharton, demonstrate that you really want to go to the school and you'd love to live in Philadelphia, but this shouldn't be the end-all, be-all, only thing that you could possibly do, and you would croak if you don't get in. Be real, be realistic. Admissions directors know that most applicants will be applying to a lot of schools. On average, applicants apply to 5 schools. So whether you are only applying to 1 or whether you're applying to 5 or 7 or 10, they kind of know these average numbers. And so you don't want to make it seem like that you are too in love with the school or too desperate. And then not being memorable enough is a pitfall. So this one is hard to avoid in the Wharton interviews, I would say, because there's less of a one-on-one component. But make sure that there's a specific thing that you do during the interview. Now, for the one-on-one component, you want to cover something interesting and unique about your story, whatever that is. In the team-based discussion component, you want the interviewer to walk away as they think about the 5 or 6 people that they saw. You want them to walk away and think, Jessica did a really great job of calling out the challenges and the opportunities and then presenting new results. You don't want them to walk away and say, Tim just kind of said a lot of things and he asked a lot of questions but didn't really get to anything, right? So try to be memorable. So we offer mock interviews with former M7 admissions interviewers for all the schools. And we have a separate program for the Wharton and Ross mock interview. As I mentioned, we do a Google Hangout session where you'll be paired with other folks. And for other schools that have a standard interview, it would be a one-on-one hour-long interview with a former interviewer from that school or from similar schools. Now for Wharton specifically, if you're interested in saving a spot for the Wharton team-based discussions, these are the times that we have available as of now. These are subject to change. They can and will fill up, and the invites haven't gone out yet, so nobody's really signed up at this point, but they do fill up relatively quickly. These are the different times that we have for group mock interviews. If you're interested in learning more feel free to click on this link or send me an email, Scott, SCOTT, @personalmbacoach.com, and we can get you scheduled for an interview session. So how else can we help? This is an overview of what we do at Personal MBA Coach outside of the interview preparation. So we offer GMAT and GRE tutoring, brainstorming, personal story development, essay editing, school selection, letter of recommendation assistance, etc. So in case you're dialing into this session, but really planning ahead, we can help you with all of the parts of the process. And at this point, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take questions. Thank you very much for joining today, and best of luck, everyone, if and when you get invited to Wharton for the interview. It's a really fun process. Okay, first question is, how would you recommend answering open-ended questions? Very, very good question. One thing to keep in mind is that open-ended questions, or questions that are difficult to answer, are not ones that an interviewer will think you will have a perfectly clear answer for. So if it's a very open-ended question, then it's really up to you to decide what you want to convey, especially for Wharton, right? You have 10 minutes to talk in a one-on-one group. So if there's a one-on-one interview, if there's something that you want to tell them, perhaps that's when you want to fit it in. So I would say to try to get something across that you really want to convey that you haven't conveyed otherwise. How would you proactively explain a low GPA or an interview, or would you skip it? I would definitely skip it. There's no reason to remind them that there's a red mark on your application if they don't bring it up. Now, if they bring it up, then that's when you want to be honest and say what contributed to the low GPA. Perhaps there were health issues that happened during school, or economic challenges, or you were working 35 hours a week or something like that. It's not terribly common to bring it up in these sessions for Wharton specifically. For other schools it might. If it does get brought up, that's how you would address it, but I would definitely not bring it up on your own. Next question is, I am a Wharton reapplicant and did the TBD last year. I felt there were people who were aggressive, and I felt that I could not articulate what I wanted to say. Any feedback? Well, first of all, I'm very sorry that that happened. That's certainly frustrating because, as you can imagine, part of the performance and the TBD depends on the rest of the group. So I'm sorry for that. What I can say is, in terms of feedback, try to jump in at different points in time and almost plan it, right? This doesn't feel as natural to say, and this isn't my cookie cutter advice, but if you have a few ideas, few things that you want to say, you can kind of pre-plan in your mind, what these ideas are and what you want to say, and then wait for the right moment to kind of jump in and talk about it. The other thing that you can do is, if you don't really know exactly when to jump in or don't have a new idea because there's so much talking, just start to respond to what other people are saying. So something like, great point, Jim. If you think about it, and when I started talking, I didn't know the rest of what I was going to say. But if you start, now you have the floor and you're talking. And then whatever you say is at least going to give you some airtime, and it will probably be logical. Do you think Wharton round 3 makes any sense at all for an international applicant? Well, the first thing that you should look into is visa timing, because that's the most common reason international applicants don't apply, is because of visa timing restrictions. That doesn't mean that you're not allowed to apply. Round 3 is challenging, but we do round 3. We're working with round 3 applicants right now. And obviously not as many, nowhere near as many as rounds 1 or 2, but it does make sense for the specific person. Now, a school will always kind of want to see why you're applying in round 3 and why you didn't apply earlier. So if there's certain things that happened that prohibited you from applying, or something great that just happened recently that made it more of a reality for you to apply, I think it can definitely work. I would keep in mind that the odds are stacked against you in round 3, and so you should really be a strong applicant. Round 3 is not for the person who is on the margin of, whether they might get in or not. Round 3 is for really strong applicants that would fit a hole that the class hasn't filled, and there's a reason for them that they waited until this point. So that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Suvik and GMAT Club, for hosting this. And if you have any other thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out, scott@personalmbacoach.com or www.personalmbacoach.com. And best of luck to everybody.